stay the same, ain't no debate. Confused, I'm in break by the power. Get it.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to beautiful London. Even though it is a rainy day, we're gonna make it fireworks on the Rift. We're back in the Copper Box Arena and MSI 2023, where the West's final hope and huge underdogs, Golden Guardians, will be facing off against JDG for a shot versus BLG on Sunday. My name is Shax, and I am joined by Emily Rand and Chronicler on the desk. What a cool trio to look over these games today. And as said, it's raining outside, so it's the first time, actually, since the time we've been here. So London is finally delivering on that front, meaning we can watch some League of Legends without shame.
Yeah, we had a lot of drizzle, but actual rain, you know, I think it's an authentic London experience. You need to get it, and hopefully everyone, there will be a long day of games.
Yeah.
We get to watch a lot, and the rain will have passed by the time it's done. Right?
I don't have high hopes.
Right?
Well, that just sets the tone for the day, I guess.
Go.
Let's take a look at the bracket, though, because if you look at it from the one hand, you're probably sad for the LCS and the LEC, but you could also just be very happy, Chronicler, about how the LCK teams and BLG are doing.
Yeah, as an LCK fan, I've had a wonderful week. I think that seeing not only Gen G be as strong as they were in finals, but T1 actually both swap up their strategy and look as dominant as they did in the regular split was really cool for me to see.
Yeah, and then from BLG yesterday, I mean, I do think BLG are still, you know, not as strong as the team we're about to see today, in my mind. Hopefully I'm not proven wrong on that. But it was cool to see them, you know, I know it was a rough time for C9, and I know they're going to want some of those games back. But I did like BLG's team fighting in particular and a lot of their team fight setups. And I did like the joke from Yagao, who was like, yeah, we knew we had to 3-0 because we had a dinner reservation for On's birthday.
Yeah. You know what? I call a little bit of bluff, because even if they played 5 games, they would have still been out by like 5 or 6 p.m.
Maybe they were a really long game.
Yeah. Maybe it was just a reservation for 7, but I like that they did it this way, though. It was cool. A little bit of banter. We've had actually a lot of banter this MSI.
It's been a fun time.
So let's get into this matchup, which is the last best of 5 in this part of the bracket stage. Then tomorrow we have 2 back-to-back ones of the upper and the lower bracket. But Golden Guardians first. Let's talk about their journey here, because you could say they don't have a chance today. They're not supposed to win, but they weren't supposed to do anything actually this year.
Yeah, I know it was covered in play-ins, but this is a team that was pretty much across the board rated 8th going into the competitive season this year. They started 0-4 in the LCS split, went on a tear kind of in the mid, but then dropped off later on in the split, so ended up 6th. We were thinking they might even slip out of playoffs. They made playoffs. They were not supposed to make it here to MSI. They weren't even supposed to win their first playoff match, so they made an incredible run through the LCS playoffs. I don't know if we're not supposed to reach bracket stage. Maybe some people thought that, maybe they didn't. But they are certainly not supposed to beat JDG today.
Yeah, sounds like a good setup for the meme we all know and love, but unfortunately, they're memes for a reason, right? The actual chances, and we need to be realistic about this, are low for GG here today.
I mean, if you look at their opponents, I think it's a juxtaposition of stories going into this one, because for JDG, this is the super team to end all super teams. Everyone expected them to be here, Emily.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can point to JDG's series, their first series against BLG and the LPL playoffs, and you're like, that's their one kind of major slip up on their way here. They still ended up winning that series, and then they looked really dominant in their finals against BLG, despite the fact that it was a 3-1 instead of a 3-0. This is a team that was constructed to win, and they are here, and they are a tournament favorite.
And what I am extremely excited about here today is to see what are we going to see. Are we going to see the same way that they played in the playoffs? And as you said, even though the first series was relatively close, the second one they made clear that they are by a large margin the best team in the LPL. And we haven't seen them for a very long time at this point.
No, and if you haven't been able to follow the LPL, you saw they have Knight in the mid lane now and Ruler in the AD carry position, and there's a lot of things we can talk about. But to cherry pick one, let's talk about 369 in the top lane, and what a might he has been in contention for the conversation of the best top in the world, together with Zeus last year as well, Emily, and certainly someone that everyone wants to see perform.
Yeah, I mean, 369 is such a fun player. I remember watching him in Demacia Cup 2018. I was like, this kid is going to be something super super special. The coolest thing for me is how much he evolved, especially through last year, where he was really heavily criticized by his own teammates even for not being able to play something outside of very specific carries. So he really grinded to be a more well-rounded player, and we've absolutely seen that last year and also this year. He can play weak side, he can play strong side, he can do it all.
He can do it all, indeed, and that's why 369 and FLICKR are facing off in our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz.
The ability to not only take criticism, but reflect on it and use it to grow yourself as a player is invaluable to those that are seeking to become the best in the world. In today's featured matchup, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz, we have two players that exemplify this uncommon trait. FLICKR's domination in play-ins shattered an illusion of being washed up and shows exactly what the right team can do for the right player.
Now onto Elf, who gets the wild growth on top of him. FLICKR trying to jump in with the all-out. Elf flashes away, charmed up, taken down. You cannot deny that the Gasante will get his mark.
An impressive comeback performance. On the other side of the rift, we see 369, whose name was synonymous with the consistent rolls of the dice. Quietly but steadily changed to become one of the most reliable top laners in the world.
Into the charm, it's beautiful stuff. Now waiting here, and Gal still in a lot of danger. Explosion cast used, 369 does a barrel roll.
Both of these incredible personalities have been humbled before and grown because of it. The question is, who will fall again?
What an awesome featured matchup, and for the side of GG as well, if you could see it as an underdog matchup, but it could prove to be very interesting. It's going to be difficult though. Maybe for people who last saw JDG last year, you know, it's not that they necessarily play as much around 369 as they used to, right?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to be on a carry. I think the biggest evolution in his play is that he can be left alone and just mitigate pressure. And while that's been something that's been credited to FLICKR as well, I think 369 is similarly well-rounded, so I'm really curious to see what's going to happen in the top lane.
Personally, I'm expecting maybe if 369 wants to do the same thing that we saw in the Gen G series, where Doran, a player that in playoffs was basically exclusively on tank duty, get some counter picks, get some explosive matchups, and we actually see these two face off in anything that is not a tank versus tank matchup.
And it's super interesting you bring that up, because one of the stories with FLICKR is that he was kind of universally rated one of the worst tops in the LCS throughout the regular season split. And it was in the 100 Thieves series where he noticed they were never going topside, and he was like, okay, you know, give me the counter pick. So you can see his LCS regular season counter pick rate was 33%. During the playoffs, it went all the way up to 76%, which is the highest of all tops. Currently, in MSI play-ins, and all of MSI actually, when I checked yesterday, he has the lowest counter pick rate. So he's back to being... He's back to blind picking a little bit more, so I'm curious to see what they do. I don't even know. It's a rough matchup for him, I think.
Yeah.
And I do think that with top lane, how it stands, I was saying earlier, I would love some carry versus carry matchups. But we have actually seen that a lot of the game is centered toward the bot side of the map, and it's more about how, as a top laner, can you enable the rest of your team. Sure, you need to be able to not drop too many plates and keep up in lane, but it's about how you play out the team fights and how you're able to impact the rest of the map.
Yes, and since we have 369, I think we did this in the past as well, but we're going to try and predict through the dice, and I have a dice cam. Wait, it's got to focus. Let's see if it's going to work. It takes a second for it to stream. Is it going to work? I don't know. Yes, okay.
Let's go. All right. I was only rolling 3s before the day started, so a 6.
That's a 6.
Oh!
Yeah, 6.
So what does that mean? Because, like, perfect 369, that would be an absolute stomp. What's a 6?
He'll do okay, right? He's solid.
Okay.
Good enough.
They'll play through bot lane. They'll play through bot lane.
Great. Okay, Dice Cam, thank you for that. Awesome, we'll check in on this and if the first game does go this way. But let's break away from that top lane just a little bit and look at some of the other elements that are going to influence this matchup and talk about jungle, because Emily, you took a specific look at River's pathing.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring up just a small example from play-ins against the PSG series, in which FLICKR is actually going to end up on this bottom side invading here. After they set up, right here, he's going to come, he's going to end up doing birds to red to Krugs, and then come and wrap around here in the bot lane. to set up for a gank. And I think the big thing you can also see is this is something that we saw a lot during the LCS split. You'll see in a moment that they're going to actually start pinging out Woody on the bot side, which is who they're going to go after. And as soon as that gets pinged out, who he is going to go in. This actually could have ended up going a little bit not as good as what ended up happening, but obviously they wanted to focus on snowballing this bot lane. River is a jungler who is going to focus on getting into his lanes, right? And that means that he is not going to have the same heavy farming advantages that Kanavi will. Someone like Kanavi is a very, very different jungler.
What I want to highlight as well, looking at Kanavi, is that when it comes to like the mid-game late team fights, being their first team, setting up engages, most notably on this Wukong, for example, he is incredibly consistent, incredibly strong. And what has been, for me, a really big theme of this tournament is that teams like JDG actually have been able to get early game leads. But it's actually turning those into more than just a lead, because if you don't, Kanavi's late game impact, I think, is really hard to deal with.
Yeah, and that's why I think this jungle matchup is kind of interesting. Obviously, we're all hinting at it. We're expecting a very lopsided series in favor of JD Gaming. This is a tournament favorite. But I think the disparate jungle styles is going to be really interesting for me, because as we saw from GG, even in their LCS final series against C9, they would have leads that they would not be able to convert into wins. And even if they do get an early lead, I fully expect that JDG and Kanavi will be able to better them in team fights.
Yeah, in that regard, it is a bit of a trend that we've seen the last couple of days with the Western teams in general. We have to look at the bot lane a little bit as well, I feel, because aside from being two very interesting stories, also competitively, it's cool to look at. Ruler, who's now on this lineup, and Stixxay, who, as we said already in the plains, is back here at MSI finally.
And if you haven't watched any of the LPL and you haven't watched any else of the game, I'm like, hey, why is Ruler no longer in GNG where he has been for so long? Did go, of course, to the LPL, did go to JDG, and had a great impact there. And we actually see a lot of similarities between how Gen G used to play around him. We see JDG do the same thing as well. As Jinx, really good example. The team fighting consistency and output in terms of damage that this player is able to do has been a hallmark of a lot of what Gen G has been able to do throughout all these years. And he's doing the same thing on JDG.
Yeah, and he's transformed JDG into an even more complete team, right? With the two acquisitions across the board in general. Now, I know that sometimes here we are blamed for cherry picking stats. And he's up versus Stixxay. But in this next graphic we're going to show, for which our stats analysts had to stay up all night.
Wow.
They put in a lot of work, okay?
Yeah.
Wow. This is not...
Look at that.
Look at that.
Cherry-picked at all.
No.
One
Facts. Cold hard facts, Emily.
One thing I do want to say is that it's cool they kind of came onto the scene in the same time. And I know Stixxay has actually talked a lot about how doing so well that early in his career, making an MSI finals his first year, right? His first international event. He's been trying to get back there, and he almost retired. So to see him on the stage, going up against Ruler, another player that started around the same time, it's just really cool.
Yeah, the story that he had to get convinced to take a spot on the academy team, that everyone wanted to play with him, and now against all odds, they make it to MSI. But let's see what magic they can make at MSI in the bracket stage, and who the fans predicted to win in our MasterCard fan predictions. It's as lopsided as it has been, 74.5.
That's actually more for Golden Guardians
than you expected?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Your expectations weren't very high. I think it's very fair given the state of the matchup, right? This is the LPL #1 seed. JDG is an incredible team, and even if you can get an early lead, like GG have been able to, it's hard to actually knock them down.
It's incredibly lopsided. You can also send in your votes every day at MasterCard Nexus on Twitter. In 20 seconds then, Emily, playing standard is probably not going to cut it. I don't know. Playing towards the top side, maybe also not. So what is it going to be if we were to see an upset today?
All right, if you want my absolute copium take,
yes,
because Golden Guardians are known for picking some stuff that they have not practiced in scrims. They're just going to randomly throw out there, especially with Huhi in the support position. That's what they have to do, right? They're on red side, get some flex picks in there, get creative, because if you can do that and have River have a good early game, that's your best shot.
Team fights, team sides. The laning doesn't matter. Just try and 5v5. Maybe you can get a win there.
Perfect. Let's see. That's all from us here at the desk. It is time for a showdown between tournament favorites from the LPL JDG and NA's last hope. Hey, there's a lower bracket. The Golden Guardians.
triple kill for Whoosh. He's looking for more.
60! Are you kidding me?
Triple of his own.
Feels great to be back at MSI after 7 years. I think our initial goal was to make the bracket stage, and now that we did that, we're just going to see how far we can go there.
从他们入围赛的表现来看，也是非常强的。因为他们打 BLG 赢下了1分吧，就还是需要警惕的。
It's just really obvious that their individual skill is higher than people that they're playing against, and that seems to be how they win the games.
我觉得我其他中单不一样的点，可能我游戲里打的可能比較自信吧，就出装会比较激进。
LPL을 우승하고 온 팀이다 보니까 당연히 잘할 거라 생각하고 솔직히 좀 겁이 나는데 네, 계속 말하지만 최선을 다해보겠습니다.
I'm actually really excited to play versus JDG because I had a bit of a thing with Ruler back in the day, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. So it's really cool that I get to play versus an actual game.
식세 선수는 되게 잘했던 선수라고 기억하고 있습니다. 우와 신기하다 라는 생각을 되게 많이 했었고 지금도 잘 한다고 생각을 해가지고 열심히 막아보겠습니다.
I've waited 7 years for this, and I'm not going to miss my shot.
제가 경기를 이기면 알려줄 수 있을 것 같습니다.
London! Please welcome the final 2 teams to the MSI bracket stage. JDG and Golden Guardians! I am the one, I am the chosen. I am the one, I am the chosen. Yeah, this is my destiny, this is my moment. I am the one, I am the chosen. I am the one, I am the chosen.
Heavy is the head, crown she soon. Feel it weighing down on my shoulders. Shoes on many bricks, but the crowd is full. Money on my head, cause I'm lawless. Taking on my list, walking down this road. I'm not late, feel the same, ain't no debate. Confused on many bricks, but the crowd is full. Get it.
Hello and welcome everyone to another day of MSI 2023. I am Azel. I'm joined here by Dagda. And finally, Flowers has arrived, traveling to an international tournament here for the first time since 2019. I'm here with my boy.
I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here. It's JDG and the Golden Guardians in the final match of this stage of the bracket of the tournament. JDG has never been to MSI before. Golden Guardians has never been to international competition before. And now I want to see both teams leave it all here on the stage.
I mean, there's a huge amount of pressure here up against for JDG, or GG against JDG. Qingdong Gaming are absolutely insane at the moment. Like, it's going to be an uphill battle, but we'll have to see if Golden Guardians can try and fight
I mean,
back.
it's easy for Golden Guardians. You just focus the weak link, and oh wait, Ruler's in the bot lane, so we're not going to go there.
Okay.
Well, oh, Knight's in mid lane. Maybe not going to be there either. Well, we could just go. We can invade Kanavi. Okay. Oh, that's going to be a problem. I'm not sure where they're going to go.
Yeah, there might be some issues in trying to find a weak link on a super team like JDG, but it all has to start here in the draft. Let's take a look at how it goes down. K'Sante, Kennen, and Ari banned out by JDG. Golden Guardians getting rid of the Nidalee, the Annie, and the Vi. Maokai, the first pick here for JDG.
I mean, what I'm looking for from Golden Guardians is to just play with confidence. You cannot go into a matchup like this afraid. Of course, JDG are monstrous favorites. Everyone knows that. You know, it's really them alongside the LCK teams I think are people are looking at potential as MSI champions. This is a super team to end all super teams. They're ridiculously stacked across the board. So I want to see GG go with new picks, go with confidence, look for fights, just have faith in your abilities and hope that you can make something magic happen.
I mean, this could be one of them. It looks like River hovering at carry here. Belvet and Kazakhs are the two. That'd be so sick to see them brought out. Felio's already locked in as well. I know from back domestically, Ruler definitely preferred to go towards the Jinx, so I imagine we're probably going to see that as a response, but I'm excited to see if they do bring out something different, but it's back to basics.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. Sejuani just far, far too powerful throughout. Honestly, the entirety of spring, this champion has been a very big presence in the meta.
Yeah.
Not surprised to see it locked in here in the game one. But JDG, they're going to lock in the Jace for themselves, as well as the Jinx there for Ruler in the bottom lane.
All right, so I'm looking for a melee pairing here from one of the soul lanes now, you know, for Licorice, for Gory, and where are they going to go? Licorice had been known to go towards a lot of carries during playoffs, you know, things like Olaf. He's willing to go towards really aggressive picks. I think that could be a strong pairing, unless they want to bring out something like a Salas perhaps for Gory.
Yeah, I think they're going to struggle a little bit, though, if you end up going towards this super short range, because just look at how much range is there with the Jace and the Jinx now locked in. It feels like you need things to try and close the distance, and Nautilus does fit that bill relatively well.
So we've got a Nautilus, we've got a Sejuani on the side of Golden Guardians, as well as the Aphelios there to be the big damage carry. This is how the Golden Guardians have played a lot of their games, putting faith in Stixxay, putting the economy and the resources in Stixxay later on, and he's got these guys for the CC and the front line to protect him. But that range that you're talking about on JDG, you gotta be careful
But
against.
this is also what we've basically seen coming out from the LCK teams, right? Like, you stick the Nautilus mid, you go for these mega tanks in front of your Aphelios, and just have a bunch of engage and let the Aphelios do the work. So it definitely feels like Golden Guardians have kind of taken a leaf out of that book and are going to go for that style.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, right? I think that Nautilus could also easily be going down towards Huhi. It is obviously a flex pick. The Jace could be Knight or 369 piloting this, so there are flex picks on both sides. You know, Huhi is not one to shy away from these engage champions, even when they're not meta. He loves going towards these early aggressive engage champions like the Set, the Amumu, things that are really in his wheelhouse.
Well, the first half of the draft sees us looking at junglers and marksmen for both teams, as well as what could be a couple of flex picks there in that third slot. So with the second half now coming around, it's Golden Guardians focusing on the supports. They want to take out the Lulu and the Renata. Both are adept at enabling and supporting hyper carries like a Jinx, so they don't want to deal with that. While JDG is looking at some of the things they've already drafted, like a Maokai ult, for instance, and saying, let's keep Silas off of the table for that. Yone also one of those picks that not everybody in the world plays, but Gory is comfortable on.
Yeah, absolutely. And clearly JDG is not convinced that this is a Nautilus mid. They're still banning out some of the melee carry pairings that Gory would be playing here. Silas is always an obvious one for me when Sejuani comes through, so it's going to be Sai on top. I do think we're waiting for 5th pick mid, unless they're going to go for a really spicy support counter pick. I do think this is likely to be a support Sion, but we'll have to see what they want to do. Clearly Golden Guardians trying to hold that till the last moment to really try to pick for some sort of an advantageous matchup. If the Gwen were to come through, it's really only carry versus carry matchups that can have much of a chance in it. So the Sion is going to be so much on that back foot, you know, really just trying to absorb the pressure, trying to survive.
Yeah, and I think now you just lock in something like a Thresh here in the bot lane, make sure that then, you know, Gwen can take care of herself, Maokai's going to be fine to play front line, and you've got that reposition tool if you need to for some of these long-range carries. Disengage isn't always a bad option as well, so it could be the Braum too, but it's the same idea. Look, let's just try and keep Golden Guardians at bay and free hit them from the back line.
Well, a little bit more time. Okay, the Braum going to get locked in there, so not something as much of a get-out-of-jail-free card as a Thresh would be or something that can save Jinx directly, but okay, we've got the Jax locked in, and yeah, that means Sion is now switched over, because you guys were just talking about, hey, Gwen's only really threatened by another carry.
Yeah.
Well, here comes the Jax copter.
So I was thinking that it was still going to be Nautilus support, but I wasn't expecting the Sion to move towards mid. So this is interesting because, you know, normally, as I was saying, Licorice is willing to play these carry matchups and see what he can get done. Jax is one of the carries I do actually really like into the Gwen. I do think it can sometimes be difficult early, but if you can actually get up to a couple items, you can definitely start to outscale. You can start to win out in those 1v1s. More difficult to team fight on the Jax, I would say, than the Gwen on the other side, but Sion is going to try to slot in a similar way that a Cassante would mid, and Sion is a great matchup into the Jace here. You can even go towards something like Comet if you want. It's not a long lane, so it's difficult for the Jace to really abuse this, and I actually like what Golden Guardians have drafted.
Yeah, I think it was a really good idea. The only thing I'm worried about is just the amount of push they have then in mid and bot, like the opportunity for them to try and put some pressure on towards River. And that's kind of where JDG have found a lot of success in the early game when you look at them domestically, is trying to find ways to use that push with Kanavi and get aggressive. It's why they have the most kills in the early game across the entirety of the LPL.
And not only do they have all of these kills, it's not like they need to have more numbers there. These guys are adept. They are so individually skilled. For Golden Guardians, they've got to have their heads on straight coming into this matchup. You cannot be trying to take some YOLO trades. You cannot be trying to ego on JDG, because this is a team that is absolutely merciless, and especially in the early game.
Absolutely. I mean, they are just ridiculously strong individuals. I would say, and I don't know if you agree, Agda, but I would say JDG is the best laning team in the world. I think that they are just so tough to deal with because of that, because every lane is so damn strong.
Oh.
He can just go either. Not gonna be able to get anything.
I know. It's the appearance of everybody pouring out of the fog. It's like, man, I do not want to be around here any longer. So 369, he'll get himself out of there. Featured matchup in the top lane. 369 versus FLICKR. Okay.
We have a spicy matchup to start it, and JDG are actually looking for something here with the Braum. We'll see if they can tag. They're fine, so they should be able to back it off, but they do get at least a little bit of that first strike gold. Worth noting, it is Ignite TP for 369, so he is really going more for that 1v1, less for kind of the team fight prowess. A lot of people would go Ghost if they want to go more for the utility, but Ignite gives you that kill pressure, especially early on, where I do already think this is a Gwen-favored matchup. So it's going to be difficult for FLICKR. She's going to have to play it really carefully.
And I think if you are a player who has that level of confidence, if you are a guy who has that level of skill, then investing in your own ability to just take those trades, find those solo kills, and snowball this game to the point of no return very early on, very viable.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly where you're going to end up struggling a little bit here as Golden Guardians, especially if you can get Kanavi up towards that top side and try to look for that kill pressure. And even, as we said, like Knight, and a couple of waves should have push pressure here, and that's going to make it incredibly hard then for Golden Guardians to try and play around this top side. And yes, you've got that, double melee where you can try and play along the Sejuani, but there's just so little damage on this top side in the early stages, it feels a little bit mitigated.
Yeah, it is going to be difficult for sure, but there's no easy answers when you're going up a team as stacked as JDG, right? At the end of the day, you're going to have to draft for comfort, and you're going to have to play the best of your ability, really hit that 100% mark to have a chance.
And the only person who really has that experience against like JDG or even Knight is Gory, right? Had that one split in the LPL, but wasn't able to find success against Knight or against JDG either. So I think he's definitely going to be giving his team a little bit of a heads up of what they might be in stock for.
And as we're waiting to get into like the first big play attempts being made really anywhere across the map, it's important to note that both of these teams are the fastest in their regions. Golden Guardian has the fastest average win time. JDG just has the fastest games. And so it's really important for Golden Guardians to make sure that they're not just playing afraid as well.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to be respectful, but they still need to be making attempts. This is a team that is not afraid to leave their lanes, try to roam around and force things to happen, and I think that's kind of what they would have to go with to try to catch JDG off guard.
Yeah, the hardest part of JDG is that, as Isaiah was kind of mentioning earlier, they're so strong in lanes. Like, they love playing around 369 and Knight, around that top side with Kanavi, but they just end up leaving Ruler and missing on this bot lane, and they've been incredible at just orchestrating their own leads. Like, when you look at it, 15 CSD on average at the 15-minute mark for Ruler in that bot side. It's been insane to see how those individual lanes have stepped up for JDG.
Yeah, River's up to the top side, but you got to be careful when you're low HP against an Ignite Gwen like this. Oh, this plant didn't actually spot him. He must be in the very corner of that brush. So this could actually bait 369 into going aggressive here. It doesn't look like it. It looks like FLICKR's just going to take the reset. So he does get the push. They cover for the reset. Now River has been spotted. But would be first move here from Knight. So he does have to be somewhat respectful.
Back through in mid lane. Kanavi's just going to force Gory back here a little bit as that topside Scuttle Crab goes over to the Golden Guardians. You can see the TP being used from 369 just to get himself back to lane. FLICKR doing the same thing, so both of our top laners going to go ahead for that first back here already. Neither one of the mid laners has done so yet, but with both currently channeling their recalls, all 4 of those solo lane teleports are going to be pretty synced up. Very important here 5 or 6 minutes from now to see when those are going to get involved again.
I like what Kanavi's doing at the moment, though. So obviously they trade Scuttle Crabs on the map, but he's getting deep vision now onto the Sejuani camps respawn on the bottom side. And a huge amount of this is kind of leaning into what we're talking about, is trying to use the push that Ruler and Knight will have to move into that and see if they can take over the map. Yes, the wave is pushing away from them now, but Ruler should be okay.
Oh, nice engage there from Huhi. This thing going to get caught by the hook, but that means they can't really do a whole lot more. It is Braum, pretty easy to disengage from that one.
Yeah, and I think this is more of just a coverage play here. 6A is actually pretty low on health and doesn't have a potion remaining, so I was thinking he was just going to try to help them push it out. Does at least get that ward in Tri-Brush, so Kanavi will be spotted, but now they're in this awkward position where they are going to have to back it up, knowing that the jungler is in the area, but the wave is not in a great spot here, and it's not a cannon wave, so if you base now, they could just hard shove this, and you are going to miss quite a bit.
And it looks like, unfortunately, that's kind of where they're at. You can see Stixxay channeling the recall now, who he's just going to occupy as much time as he can from JDG, who will get this shoved in. Jinx rockets make it pretty easy to blast down that back line.
Yeah.
And with this about to collide into the turret, it's exactly what you're saying, man. They force Golden Guardians back. They make Stixxay lose some of those resources.
Yeah, he's going to lose at least a full wave, if not more. You know, that's about 2 waves worth that are actually crashing right there. And you can see just the CS difference is already 20 off of that. You know, it was a lot closer earlier on, but a good little bit of pressure. The recall not able to be stopped here, and we'll see if Stixxay can get any of this.
Yeah, you can see who he was trying to wait for when one player had already recalled, hit that magic sweet spot of just a fraction of a second to stop the other recall. Unfortunately, the timing not there means that nothing good comes of it. Golden Guardians behind a couple hundred gold here, but not a whole lot, as we're still 0 kills in 6 minutes into the game. Nobody's really been able to find a whole lot just yet. First Drake is the Hex Drake down there in the bottom side. We'll see if anybody pays attention to it. Golden Guardians in particular, not a really Drake-focused team.
You see Kanavi keeps thinking about going for these plays on the top side, but it's just not quite working out. Trying to see if he can cover for Rivers plays potentially here, but we'll spot out Licorice now as he starts to make his way in, but should be totally fine. At least you don't get the ward down to spot out exactly where Kanavi is.
It is also interesting that Kanavi's actually playing First Strike, so he probably is going more of that AP style build, even though they do have the Gwen. So it is going to be much more about that poke, you know, between the poke from the saplings, the poke from the Jace, the long range from this. Oh god, 6A is very likely dead.
Flashed away, but it's not enough. The choppers are behind him, and Jinx is in front. It's first blood over to Ruler.
Ruler just about able to get forward to get the choppers down to make that awkward, but Stixxay just barely clipped by Misty, and it sets up beautifully for the first blood.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how that initial play began, because Hui wasn't there with him, so Stixxay pretty far up in lane. It does cost all 4 summoners from JDG, but they get the first blood, and they get it on Ruler, and Stixxay is now completely out of this lane. This lane is beyond over. You're down about 30 CS, plus your opponent has first blood. It's not going to be something that you're really going to be able to come back from in that 2v2. So 6A is just going to be relegated to just trying to accept whatever waves are pushed into him and really going to be on that back foot.
And that's rough in any game, but especially when you look at the composition Golden Guardians are playing in this game. 3 meatballs meant to protect an Aphelios, and if Aphelios isn't relevant, all of a sudden, what's the rest of the comp even going to do?
Yeah, what are you protecting?
Yeah, and I mean, it's only going to get worse from here, especially as you can look towards Kanavi starting to move down, looking for dragons at level 6, but you're just going to get the replay here, so just hops forward to a minion. Stixxay way too far pushed up in this.
Yeah, Stixxay saw him. You know, I thought it was going to be something like where Stixxay stepped forward to actually hit the minion, and then he jumps over the wall and actually gets him. But, you know, in this case, he had vision of him, so just not respectful stuff, and you can kind of see a little bit of a smirk there. It looks like on Ruler's face, and Stixxay knows he definitely messed that one up. But Golden Guardians will be able to secure the dragon, so nicely done from them on that bottom side, but it's already a 1.4k gold lead, and we're only 8 minutes in here. It's going to be a problem for Golden Guardians.
Golden Guardians can at least take that consolation prize with the dragon. 8 minutes in, so not exceptionally early, and they still have to deal with the problem of you're only 1 Drake there. So if they keep building gold up gold up against you like this, well, you're not going to be able to continue just walking in and taking.
And I imagine that they'll be able to move up towards Riftchild here as well for JDG. You can see the resets from Ruler are missing on the bottom side. Kanavi's already up here, so they can start to rotate towards mid and make sure that they've got the quicker move as Kanavi already moving over.
Yep, you can see the pathing from Ruler and Missing, just heading straight up into the top side there. Kanavi now inside the pit, throws the sapling over the wall to give him an extra heads up if Golden Guardians are moving up behind that pit instead. As Licorice gets into the 1v1 with 369, but it's not a fight that he's winning, especially not with Kanavi on the way. 369 drops the ignite, forces out the flash from the Golden Guardians top lane.
Yeah, Licorice had to flash there. If he got hit by the slow, that would have been a disaster as the rest of JDG were on the way, but now Golden Guardians trying to contest.
Golden Guardians looking for the engage. Who he's already found it. They go in. They manage to find the kill on Ruler, and the Golden Guardians are on the board.
A big hook there from Hui. Flashes in, finding Ruler who had no sum, so they're going to get that kill. And they should be able to claim the Herald here as well. So Golden Guardians going right at him, not shying away from this fight. They knew they could capitalize on the fact that those summoners were missing. And it is 369 cheating down. It looks like JDG potentially want to re-engage here, but 369 does not have his ultimate. Neither does Kanavi.
Ruler is also on the bottom side, so be a bit of a weird one if they wanted to. Missing stepping forward, yeah, I think he's just going to go top side, but might get caught.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird pathing though. You know, JDG were kind of like, Ruler's heading bot, but JDG were still hanging around in the area. Support's still staying in that area. So potentially Missing was worried about a collapse onto 369 because he was trying to reset that wave. So staying top to maybe just cover him.
It kind of baited Stixay to move back up towards the top side as well. So you're actually going to get a bit of free time now for Ruler on the bottom end of the map. So at least it does kind of work out slightly for JDG where they get at least that play back. But big win for Golden Guardians managing to get that rift out.
Yep, Golden Guardians still about 1,000 gold behind, but with the Herald and the Drake now in their pocket, it doesn't feel quite as bad. We'll have to wait and see what sort of situation they're going to use that Eye of the Herald in to see how much value they can get from it. But River now looking for an opportunity on 369 here. No Ghost, no Flash, no defensive summoners available here for the Gwen. He will not escape, and Licorice gets the kill.
Well played by Golden Guardians. They get that Herald, they get a kill back on this top side. The entire gold lead is Ruler, so Golden Guardians can fight anywhere that Ruler is not and be on even terms, right? And they are not shying away. They're trying to attack these missing summoners, attack these missing cooldowns. 369 had really overstayed his welcome. You know, Missing was up there for a while, helping him to reset the wave, but he greeted, potentially trying to finish another item and try to push out that X wave. Gets killed for it.
And I mean, we might even see the punishment now again on bot side. River immediately moving in here. Ruler's flash isn't quite up, does have the Ghost available.
River looking for the engage here on bottom side. They missed the Glacial Prison, but they got the follow-up coming in from Nautilus. Ruler tries to get away, but he goes fishing, and River lands him a kill. Second death on Ruler this game.
He finds Kanavi and also Missing. They're just going to continue to push in. They can easily take these plates here.
And the Herald comes out. They're thinking about fighting these guys here a little bit, but Stixay's not around to do any damage to the enemy targets. They gotta be careful about this. Knight's making his way down here. Golden Guardians try to disengage. He's sticking around too long. He gives away a free kill. And now Golden Guardians have to retreat even further. River and Stixay take damage from the Super Mega Death Rocket, but they'll escape before Knight arrives.
They do lose their support, but they get a kill on Ruler. They get 3 plates on that bottom tower, and that is really, really big here. They're trying to get some gold back on Stixay. He was over 1K behind. He's now down 500. It is unfortunate that they haven't been able to give any of these kills to him, but still, Stixay's back in it, and Golden Guardians are being competitive.
I was going to say, Golden Guardians are playing this incredibly well.
Yeah.
The fact that they're using these advantages elsewhere to now bring it down to Stixay to try and right some of the wrongs that were there. Like, this is exactly what you need to do. As we said, this composition relies so heavily on Stixay, so the fact they're getting him back into this game is so crucial.
And you can see Divine Sunderer completed on Licorice. Up there in the top side, having that mythic item, we know how effective that makes Jax. The stronger trades, the healing. In a carry versus carry matchup, if one of these guys can start getting that momentum, start building that up, it becomes difficult to answer. Here's another look at what went down in bottom lane.
This is actually just great from Huhi. Hex Splash over the wall, max range hook to that wall there, and then actually able to get in range for the ultimate. So even though it's a nice sidestep on River's engage, Hui's been on point.
Hui's been such a monster all MSI long. Like, we were praising his set earlier on, his Amumu engages and planes were absolutely insane, and now we're seeing it against potentially one of the best teams in the world. Huhi is stepping up huge for Golden Guardians.
Yeah, overstaying a little bit here, trying to get those plates. They do get the 3rd plate, but it is Huhi giving up his life for it. And Golden Guardians right back to the river here, going to be trying to take their 2nd dragon of the game. They don't have push in mid though, so Knight is moving down. They do have push through bot. Ruler is coming out now. We'll see if they want to get this fight, because there could be an engage angle for Gory. Here he comes!
Golden Guardians are ready to go in. They try to engage on the enemy jungler, but they aren't able to find the damage in time. JDG can disengage it thanks to Kanavi's flash, and now they're ready for the counterattack. River's already dead, and Ruler got the money. They throw down the choppers, and they beat down the Guardians. Knight gets away back into the safety of the pit as Kanavi tries to buy a little more time. A shot from downtown from Knight, and Gory's running for the hills. Ruler finds another one, and JDG tear him in half.
They shut the door on Golden Guardians. A fantastic fight from JDG, managing to just find those kills. Ruler with the Super Mega Death Rocket, and then just free firing towards the end of that fight to finish off the team.
Yeah, he comes in, he gets that first reset with his ultimate from long range. That gives him the move speed to get quickly into that fight and really take over. We have to give so much credit to Missing on these plays. He's been really on point, blocks the engage here from Gory with the E, taking no damage from that, and then he finds his opportunity here as Knight has chipped him down a little bit, missing flashes in Q, then the knockup comes through. Here's the ulti for the reset. That gets Ruler into the bottom of the fight from the bottom there, gets that second kill. There's no way out for Gory and Stixxay, so all they can do is fight forward here, try to get one back. It is a double kill for Stixxay, but really well played for Missing. He was the X factor in that fight.
Yeah, brilliant stuff there. You can see Golden Guardians trying to look in the back lines. Not going so hot for them, but again, I think this is where at least a good start for them. It's just unfortunate now you got 4 kills onto the Jinx. A Cole completed as well, Kraken Slayer with the Zeal. She is huge, and we're back towards the Dragon with Golden Guardians nowhere in the vicinity.
I mean, this is what I was talking about earlier, right? Yeah. It's if you continue to fall behind, if the gold keeps going the other way, trying to take more of those Drakes could result in some big problems. Golden Guardians stepping up into the enemy jungle, recognizing that their opponents were down in the Drake. It means they can have man advantage on the other side of the map. Yes, it's not as good of an objective to take as a Drake, but at least you get the blue.
Well, the funny thing is, the gold leads that they're showing there look massive, but that's about their average in the LPL. They're nearly 2,000 gold ahead at 15 on average in their games. So, they are very difficult to deal with, but that is a tower taken on that top side by Licorice, who is really strong. He's going to be a big source of power here for the Golden Guardians. He is actually significantly ahead of 369 now with the tower going down. It's an 800 gold advantage there for Licorice, so we'll have to see what can he get done in the side lanes, and if he's going to join these fights, can he make some magic happen?
It's a bit tough for him at the moment, though. As you can see, JDG shoving mid immediately move across into Rift Herald, so not quite able to use the vision that they had established in that top side as part of the cross map. And now JDG probably going to just try and plunk this in the mid lane. They should be able to push Stixxay back here.
Yeah, and I always find it's very difficult for Jax to team fight against champions like the Braum, like the Maokai. It's so much feeling. If you jump in, you're going to get locked down, and there's more than enough damage on the other side to burst you out. So this tower likely to fall here for Golden Guardians.
Yeah, JDG is so good at ballooning those early leads into huge mid-game leads. River's coming in to try to at least stop him, make something happen here. Missing with an easy dash, getting himself away from the follow-up of the Guardians, and JDG just casually brushes it off.
It was a nice attempt from Golden Guardians. You can see the idea. You know that the Rift Herald's going to be coming down mid. We have pushed in side lane, see if we can collapse quickly onto the mid lane, but just not quite able to get into position in time to do so. But I like the idea, and Golden Guardians aren't shying away from fighting JDG whenever they can.
Yeah, not at all, and you can't be afraid of this team, because if you back off against JDG, if you seed every time they push forward and look for an objective, they're going to take the whole map. And this is a team that snowballs games incredibly effectively. Yeah. You have to be willing to kind of make that mark in the sand where you're going to look for these fights. And we see Huhi up on this top side. Are they going to look for some sort of a sneaky play? Have someone TP in on that ward, potentially look for a wraparound. We can see multiple members from Golden Guardians are wrapping up here, and they're not going to expect Huhi, who is behind Knight, so I think they are going to look for this.
All right, can Knight get away from it? Huhi goes in, drops the depth charge. Now can they get the follow-up? Missing is already there. Licorice coming around, trying to see if there's an angle, but it ain't gonna happen. 369 has cut off the escape. He's buying a little bit more time as the damage continues pouring in, and JDG grabbed the first kill. It'll be traded back 1-for-1 with both top laners dropping as Huhi's barely hanging on to life. The turret goes down even because Ruler's back in the mid lane. It's an even fight in a 4v5, and JDG are the ones still pushing forward.
And JDG don't look like they're done. The knockup from Gory.
And Navi getting caught here a little bit. Got to be careful about it, but Stixxay's already down instead. Kanavi gets away, and Knight is showing the Golden Guardians how the LPL gets it done.
Knight is just going crazy there. Yes, JDG are down members, but it's only Stixxay who can do deal damage. So as soon as Knight gets in, it actually takes him out. The rest of the members have nothing left in the tank. Licorice went down early, and then it's really only Stixxay who can threaten. So JDG now out of almost nowhere, open up a 5K gold lead as Ruler knocked down multiple turrets in mid lane. They win the fight on the top side. It's a valiant effort here from Golden Guardians, but the damage dealers were just not really in position. You look at the map, look how far away Stixxay is. He's over here. The TP is just now coming in from Licorice on that top side. Everyone's actually going to come back and try to really collapse onto 369. But utilizing that Shroud, you can look at Licorice, he's pretty much already out of the fight immediately.
Yeah, I mean, they do such a good job of spreading out the fight here for 369, and as well, the fact you got Kanavi missing. Look, constantly positioned in front of Knight. They're never letting Golden Guardians hit those skill shots onto the chase. And even as we start to move forward here as well, keep your eyes on missing. As JDG start to go low here, with Gory getting a really smart knock-up here, missing again, hopping in front of Kanavi to make sure that he was able, or sorry, in front of Knight to tank the hook there to make sure that Knight was able to escape and keep that damage hook.
Yeah, I mean, Knight was just never really threatened. You know, he's on that left side, he flashes in after that, you know, was missing a Kanavi in that brush, and Knight, he is the one that you have to deal with. And you can look at the damage tell, 4,300. Knight did about as much as the entire Golden Guardians, it feels like, on that team.
And the important thing here is Ruler's at 0 because he wasn't even there. That entire sequence was JDG making a 4v5 play overall while Ruler was collecting money back in the mid lane. Nearly a 6,000 gold lead now. Baron's going to spawn in 10 seconds. Next, Drake is spawning in 15. And the Golden Guardians are unfortunately at the point of the game where contesting anything in neutral territory is just a steep cliff.
Yeah, I mean, after the play goes bad on top side, now FLICKR likely to die here on the bot side.
I don't think there's any way he goes home, man. Knight is just there and ready to pick up another kill.
You know, Golden Guardians were keeping it competitive, but after that failed play on the top side, that was really them kind of betting the game, it feels like, on that. They had to make that play work. If you're not going to respond to mid lane, you give up multiple towers there, you lose on the top side as well, you lose the tier 1 top, also to Knight, who stayed around after that. Now you lose the Dragon. It's like a 2,500 gold lead just between the ADs at this point. Monumental gold lead in the mid lane as well, and your top lane advantage is gone. So Golden Guardians have lost all edges in this game.
And it's only going to balloon further. Once you've lost 2 towers in the mid lane, it's so difficult to hold on to these tier 2s as well because JDG can just take the quick route across these towers after they push in the mid waves. And we already talked about the range on them. The siege potential on JDG with the composition they have is so disgusting, let alone 369 having pressure on the side. And it feels like at this stage, Golden Guardians, as you say, they kind of risked it all, but it just didn't come up for them.
And I'm glad that at least they tried something. I'm glad they took some sort of a risk, recognizing it was going south way too fast. Yeah, it didn't work out, but it's better to at least put up a fight than just hope that they mess up. Because a team like JDG is not going to casually throw the game against you for no reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the first 15 minutes of the game, Golden Guardians were staying very competitive, but JDG really showing their class. They're just outplaying in these team fights, and it's a trend we've seen, you know, for 4 days in a row now, where these LPL and LCK teams, you know, in the key moments are just outplaying their LCS and LEC counterparts in these fights. They're finding better coordination, they're finding better map movements, and if you go for these fights, and if you're trying to force, you know, team fights over and over and over, these teams will kill you through side lanes.
And I think, Kanavi actually gonna go?
Navi leading the charge there, but can't lock anybody down in any sort of meaningful way. He was pretty far ahead of the rest of his team. Yeah, exactly. Just letting them know, if anybody was behind me, you guys were dead.
Well, and it looks like they just want to set up here potentially around the Baron. It is going to be that Ocean Rift, which is so nice for Maokai, especially when you're playing AP Maokai. All the additional brushes that do spawn makes it a nightmare to actually walk through here in clear vision, unless you have someone like Gory actually doing that first. So it's going to be very difficult for them to control that area. And we know that JDG has a tremendous amount of damage. So if Golden Guardians lose control on that top side, there's always the threat that they're just rushing down Baron.
And when you look at JDG, they're number 1 or number 2 in a lot of stats in LPL, and their objective control is no different. These guys are absolutely adept at controlling all neutral objectives, Drakes, Heralds, Barons, and for Golden Guardians, that's why I had to bring it up earlier. These neutral objectives are so hard to fight for in this game state, but Golden Guardians are getting into it now a little bit. Missing here on the front line, picked up by Stixay. Golden Guardians get 1, but JDG doesn't want to just let him get away with it. Stixay's got 200 HP. He tries to disengage, and 369 forces the flash.
And no one's blocking those shot blasts for Stixay. You know, you have all these meatballs on the team here. You talked about the juxtaposition on the other side where everyone is just stepping forward and blocking things for Knight. No one was doing that for Stixay. He shouldn't have had to use either summoner. The only reason he does is because no one blocked the shot blast coming through from Knight. And now they're just going to go straight back to that Baron. Sure, you got the kill, but you lost out on the trade. Golden Guardians should be aware of this, so they're going to have to try to get out here as fast as possible. We'll see if River can make some magic happen.
River hoping to maybe find a miracle steal, but no, sir. Kanavi's got the smite, he's got the confidence, and they pick up the kill on River for the cherry on top.
It was a nice attempt, but there's not really much you can do now. Gory might be in trouble.
Gory trying to get away from the collapse of JDG, but it's the Golden Guardians who are falling to pieces. 369 picks up his 3rd kill of the game, and a Baron-empowered JDG can push down mid. Knight recalls, but he has his teleport to join back up, drops it on the minion as soon as it gets to the turret, just guaranteeing they can push into the base now. River's back in 5 seconds, but Gory's still dead for 25 more, and JDG is already 10,000 gold up. They're pushing straight into the Nexus turrets. The Maokai ulti goes down. They bind plenty of damage onto Hui, onto River. Hui barely gets out, and River's at 100 health. Licorice tries to stand and fight, but the Jax is down, and Knight is unstoppable. JDG take game 1 and smash the Golden Guardians.
An incredible performance from JDG. A lot of people waiting to see exactly how they would look showing up at the international stage, and they are looking absolutely spectacular. The golden left hand walking off stage there with a big smile on his face.
I mean, they just crushed them. The way that they snowballed that game, once they got that big advantage on the top side, it's really, incredible to see how fast they're able to push the pace of the game, how quickly they're able to snowball these advantages, and take what looked for, 15 minutes to be a fairly competitive back and forth game to a Nexus explosion within 10 more. It's just insane.
There's a reason they are the fastest team in the LPL. I want to give credit to Golden Guardians for trying to box with them a little bit in the early game. JDG is a team that's frightening throughout the entirety of a match of League of Legends, but particularly early, and Golden Guardians didn't back down from it. But it's JDG's coordination combined with the individual skill levels, Dagda, you were pointing out missing, and the fact that everybody was blocking for each other. Isaac, you looked at missing in particular, and his movements in that river fight, and how those were able to turn things around and get those carries going. And when these guys work together, it's like one person controlling 5 champions, because everybody's doing exactly what they need to do for the team.
I mean, it's so unfortunate for Golden Guardians, because I actually think they did put up a really good fight in the early stages. Just the fact that, they fell behind early in that bot lane with initially losing that big wave, then Stixxay giving over that kill. If they had actually held that together for just a little bit longer, I really think this could have been like a really good showing for Golden Guardians.
It's just so hard though, man. Ruler and Mizzy are so damn good in the 2v2. They do this to everyone. This is a team that on average was up 15 CSD, at 15 in the LPL against some of the very best dual lanes in the world. These guys just make it look easy. So every tiny little mistake that you make is going to be punished to the maximum here against JDG.
Well, JDG are playing fast and they're playing scary, exactly like we thought. And to break it all down, let's toss it back over to the analyst desk.
Thank you so much, Captain Flowers. It's also awesome to hear your voice here at the Copper Box Arena. By the way, you didn't have to use it that much. The game was not that long, and unfortunately for Golden Guardians, it was very convincing out of JDG, actually what we've come to expect. And I feel like the consensus here on the desk was, don't try to play standard because it's not going to net you a lot of advantages. So we did see a different draft. Golden Guardians, sometimes they do this, right? But where did you land on the ideas that they brought to the table?
So I actually like the Psy and Flex. I think it worked out relatively well. And Gory, even though his laning wasn't great, did find a couple of decent flanks, even if they were a bit disjointed. But after the Braum was locked in, I think that the Jax specifically didn't really hit the mark for me. Playing Jax into Gwen might sound good, but playing it into Braum and Maokai does not sound good at all. And with that, they really kind of pigeonholed themselves into a really short-range composition. So if you start falling behind, you're trying to hard force fights, as the cast pointed out, with missing on Braum, good luck.
Yeah, Braum is the most valuable pick here, I think, in the draft. With the flex in mind, I think another thing that we have to call out is Kanavi, right? Because even though I thought River's attention to his lanes and where he needed to be was good, he did look for stuff topside to try to snowball that. Kanavi covered him so well and was tracking him the entire time, so he was not really able to kind of hard snowball the matchup. If you're doing that kind of flex in draft, the whole idea is that you're going to try to get that person significantly ahead, right? And that wasn't really able to happen. Even though obviously he did get ahead, it was not enough.
No, and then of course it doesn't help if in lane there's an oopsie. So let's take a look at the first blood, Emily.
Yeah, so the thing I wanted to talk about this is typically when Huhi leaves lane, the setup is going to have to be better than this, right? Because the big thing here is that Huhi leaves on this roam timer, but the wave is not in a good spot, it's so easy for them to immediately turn on to Stixxay. As soon as Huhi clears out that wave in the brush heading into mid, they spot him out there, and then you notice the bot lane can immediately engage onto Stixxay. So this is something that we saw in the LCS. Huhi was the support that roamed the most in the LCS. But if you're going to do it, you need to, GG need to find a better timer to make sure they're not putting Stixxay in that position again.
We've seen that also in some of the other best of fives, right? Where that's a mismatch and you can't just copy and paste that play style because you're up versus a completely different level of competition.
Yeah, it really comes down to fundamentals for me, where even if the individual plays, I really like that you highlighted River, because I think his early proactive play was really good, right? And we see again, he's able to get some of his laners ahead, he's able to get a couple of fights started off well, but against these teams, you can make one mistake and it's all over.
And we'll take a look at that mistake. It was at the Drake fight, which was absolutely huge, and it's a wipe, and we all looked at each other and said, this is it, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is kind of where we'd seen some fights earlier prior to this one. The one around Rift Herald specifically, where even though GG kind of came out ahead, they didn't really have a good setup afterwards. This looks like, okay, maybe we can bring it back. The big thing coming out of a lot of these fights, though, is like, even when GG are able to get some positive plays, a little bit of something out of it, either this happens where, you know, JDG just comes back, and Ruler was already ahead, by the way, prior to this. But you see it in the gold graph, too, I think, is, right, we saw, like, some positive plays for GG, but the gold just steadily kept rising for JDG because of their map play and because of their superior teamfighting and skirmishing.
Another example was when they got the Herald, even though the Herald fight went well, Huhi with a great engage gets Ruler, Stixxay gets zoned out of, or rather isn't in his bot lane, and they are kind of wasting time. They're just kind of, okay, so we're gonna get Herald, okay, sure. No one is catching bot wave, no one is making sure that they pick up all that gold, and Ruler ends up getting a plate. So even though he died first in that fight and the Herald goes over, they still come out ahead on gold.
That's also a trend I feel like we've seen for a couple of days, Marit, specifically, especially if you contrast it to the exact same objective that the other team gets, but just doesn't get anything done.
Yeah, it really is about the way that even if you are losing an individual play, which has happened to a lot of Western teams, right? Like T1 the most notably, but even here, Ruler getting caught out a couple of times. But if you still get the plates, have a better wave state, are earlier at the lane where you need to be, you deny your opponent so much gold, and even if you get kills, you're falling behind on the rest of the map.
What does that come down to? Maybe it's an amalgamation of everything together, but is that confidence? Is that macro vision? Is that, what is it? It seems to me that it's a little bit of everything, unfortunately, but you see those snap decisions and those snowballs being pushed forward so heavily, specifically by the LPL and the LCK teams.
Well, I mean, I think just in terms of like LCS teams, they just leave a lot more opportunities. So like, how are you going to know, unless you're going up against better competition, where you are leaving yourself open? So that's why we see a lot of these things, again, come down to like wave state and roam timers. And I know everyone finds this stuff kind of boring, but it's like really, really important. Reset timers.
I'm listening, Emily. I love
it. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Emily.
So yeah, so like that is a lot of it, right? Like that's how you see teams mitigate pressure. So even when we see, again, these small little positive things, oh, the reset is then off, so they don't get as much out of the Herald as they could. Or, you know, we roamed on a bad timer, so now we left our bot lane exposed, and now their bot lane is significantly ahead. Like, these are small things that, you know, going up against teams that don't punish you is hard for it. You are not going to notice as much.
No, and it's JDG that run forward, and the LPL champion don't drop a beat in their first game at MSI 2023. Let's see how the Golden Guardians bounce back in Game 2 right after this.
Let's go have fun, okay, guys? Don't play scared.
Yeah.
Play aggressive. Come on, go.
Okay. Jinx. Jinx is dead. Jinx is dead. Everything. Nice.
No Ghost, no Flash, no defensive summoners available here for the Gwen. He will not escape, and FLICKR gets the kill. But they got the follow-up coming in from Nautilus. Ruler tries to get away, but Huhi goes fishing, and River lands him a kill. They find plenty of damage onto Huhi, onto River. Huhi barely gets out, and River's at 100 health. FLICKR tries to stand and fight, but the Jax is down, and Knight is unstoppable. JDG take Game 1 and smash the Golden Guardians.